It's Hal here with you. I wish that you could see the nonsense that has been going on off air. And hey, maybe one day that'll be something that StreamYard introduces, because Ollie is here with you. Ollie, I beg you, please don't do what you just did off air, on air, for anyone. But whatever you do, how are you?
Yes, not too bad, thank you, Hal. You know, it's a Monday, and so I'm a bit tired, but other than that, I shouldn't complain. How are you?
You're already tired. You know, you've got like 5 more of these. I've got an infected toe. Thanks for asking. Went to the doctors today. That's getting sorted. I bet you're really pleased. You see, with me, you get an honest answer. But I have just been to watch some live football. I'm going to more on Thursday. So this is good. I'm getting to watch Ike Larnaca against West Ham, which I hate West Ham, as all Blades do. I'm wearing the new shirt, signed by the squad, which is thanks to Sheffield United. And I'm looking forward to today's match preview. You're going to get Reading and Sheffield United team news ahead of Tuesday's 8 p.m. kickoff at the Select Car Leasing Stadium. That is its name. Of course, to me, it'll always be, well, Elm Park. Last time out, player connections. I'll wait until the end. We're going to have our score predictions in the transfer embargo derby. Ollie, let's talk about, but only for a few seconds. In fact, I'm already bored of it. Blackburn 1, Blades 0. Thoughts?
Oh, God, I wish we didn't have to talk about it at all. I'll be honest with you. Of course, I did think, they've scored on a really quick breakaway. It's really nice play from their perspective. Obviously, we all know the frustrations from our perspective. The speed at which some of our players came back to try and stop us conceding that goal will forever be a frustration. But I thought actually first off, for at least sort of 25, 30 minutes, we did all right, put some pressure on. But ultimately, that second half was just not good enough. Really, really disappointing in the end that we didn't really try and kick on and get ourselves back in the game. So yeah, one to forget once again at Blackburn away.
If you want analysis, you get that on the match reaction. So I did the match reaction for this. I gave some of my opinions on what I thought could and should have happened. Do check that match reaction out if you haven't yet. James saying this is the Chris Armstrong derby. Let us know in the comments. We always want your opinion. Whose derby this actually is. Is this the Carlos Saba derby? I love calling things a derby when they're not. Ollie, last time out, away at Reading. I was there. I went actually with former fans reactor, Tyrone, and it was his birthday. And it was, as it always is for Reading away, absolutely freezing.
Indeed, yeah, it was a really cold one not this time last year, but when we were there last season. It wasn't the greatest game, if we're being honest. I felt like United were on top, did most of the attacking, and it was probably a deserved win in the end. Unfortunately, this one is a game remembered for all the wrong reasons, because despite it being TJ's birthday, this was the game where John Fleck collapsed off the ball and after a lengthy delay was then stretchered off the pitch. Fortunately, he has now made his full recovery, and we are seeing him back in the United team. And before this weekend, he was actually putting in some performances for us as well. But no, great to have him back. But in the game, United, I thought, were unlucky not to be ahead in the first half. Morgan Gibbs-White went really, really close with a fantastic free kick. Honestly, it would have been a worldie, but that came back off the bar and we weren't able to put in the rebound. Second half, United were pushing. We're doing what we can to try and get back in this game. Bogle was denied by a really good save of some nice play. Ryan Brewster, if you remember him, was juggling the ball in their box. Some really nice play to Bergo, worked it right, and then the keeper made a really good save. United did win it 1-0. A deep Didsy cross volleyed home by Bogle before the game did peter out a little bit after that injury stoppage, understandably, because it was obviously a really tough one for the lads and a really tough night, really, despite the result.
It was horrible. I did the match reaction for that game as well at the time in November, and I do remember it just being the only thing I was concerned about. The football was definitely secondary, and John Fleck's health was paramount, and well said. Ollie, let's hope we get a Blades win this time round. Let us know in the comments your memories of Reading, not from last time, but throughout. We've also popped this on our Twitter. If you're not yet following us on Twitter at Sheff United Way, it's good, I think, because it's a lot of my stuff on there. And we'd love to know what your reckoning is about some previous games, some memories, some John Harley, some Dean Windass, whatever you like. Now let's look at team news for this one and get Nick's predicted 11. We know that Anel is suspended, but we also know that it could be changes because it was a really poor display at Ewood Park. Nick has actually rung the changes with his predicted lineup. Brewster and Reece Norrington-Davies not in there because Paul Heckingbottom saying today they'll be ready when they're ready, whatever that means. Ender has been back on the grass, getting that a little bit closer. This is the quote from Paul Heckingbottom. He'll continue working here whilst we travel down there. So Ender definitely not going to be involved, which is why Nick has Wes in goal, Baldock at right wing back, Basham, Egan and Jackie Long throw a left centre back, left wing back, Ben Osborne, Ollie.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this one myself. I'll be honest with you, Hal. I think I would be leaving Max Lowe in there. I think it's the right call to make a change on the right for Baldock. But for me, Ben Osborne has been decent in his appearances recently, but I would be keeping Lowe on that side.
No, you've got to earn your place, and Ben Osborne's done enough to earn his place. He's performed really well at left wing back, and if you don't give players, when they do play well, the chance to then get in the first team, what's the motivation as a professional footballer? And he's done it. I remember when Nick sent me this earlier today, and he said, "You'll be pleased, I've got Osborne in there," and I responded with, "I'd only be happy if Osborne's in there twice." You've got Norwood and Doyle in the middle, Sander playing further forward, Iliman and Dye, and he's gone with McBurney. There has been a fair few shouts for a bit of a change in midfield and up front on social media when we put this on Twitter. Your final thoughts with the midfield, which was overrun against Blackburn, and up front?
Yeah, I think McBurney's the right choice up front. I think that is what I would be going for, obviously. Fitness issues and things like that all permitting. Midfield-wise, I'd be tempted to agree with James Stribley in our comments and drop Sander Berg. I think at this point, he's just not really doing enough to justify his place in the team. And I think it'd be nice to see McAtee coming out there, maybe showing us what he's got to offer. I think it's the right to make the change for Doyle, and I think it would be right as well to make the change for McAtee and maybe just try something a little bit different, because at the minute, that with Sanders just not working.
I mean, of course, Sander didn't put the price tag on himself. Sander doesn't pick himself. He's going through a bit of a tough time. I'm quite interested in the right wing back position. I know we said we'd move on, but I just want your thoughts on this. You know, I thought the Bogle Baldock thing now is getting to more of a serious debate because there's always been the old saying that Baldock's your defensive right wing back and Bogle's your attacking right wing back. I'm not sure now if that's necessarily the fair way that you would put those two and label them, certainly with recent performances. Who wins that race at the moment for you?
I am putting Baldock in. If he's fit enough, I've got Baldock in this team right now. I think when we are at our best earlier in the season, I thought that Bogle was the right option. I thought going forwards, as you said, he offered a lot more. I feel as though that end product's been lacking a little bit in recent weeks, and therefore I'm just not quite sure it's the same balance. I think particularly on Saturday it was noticeable. I think that goal possibly is prevented with Baldock and his commitment and the speed at which he might be charging back into that position that maybe others don't replicate. And that's not a knock against them. It's not their style of play in the same way, but I'd like to see Baldock coming into the team. I think nothing against Bogle. I think he's brilliant and I'd love to have him in the team. It's not a massive downgrade, but for me, Baldock, I think, as we said, you said for Osborne on the left. I'm going to say for Baldock on the right. I think he's got the shirt.
Let us know. We don't really want to hear our own voices. We already know what we think. Let us know in the comments your thoughts. Sanderberger, Baldock, Bogle, all the bees. Ollie, while we're talking about opposition players that we were facing against Blackburn that were really tearing us apart, you mentioned Gallagher was going to score against us. Thankfully, he didn't. Are you now about to mention a Reading player that is definitely going to score against us? Give us the opposition news.
Yeah, the opposition news indeed. Today I've got a few injuries at the minute that they're struggling with. Junior Hoylett's out. Sam Hutchinson, who, you know, from the other side of the city, will tell you that he's always out injured. So I don't think that's news that he's injured yet again. I think Liam Moore is out. It depends week after week on whether he's a week away, whether he's to the end of the season. Just seems inconsistent with what they know about him. And Ovia Joria, I think, is also going to be out. So with that in mind, I think they're going to line up in their regular sort of a hybrid 4-3-3. And I think the 11 will look something like Joe Lumley in goal, Andre Yedom at right back, Tom Holmes coming in at centre half. Now, the governor, as he likes to be known, has a little bit of a penchant for just dropping somebody for making a mistake. You make a mistake that costs a goal, then you get dropped. And Mbengwe did make those mistakes at the weekend. So I think Tom Holmes is probably going to come in. He'll be partnered with Naby Sarr. And then similarly, Tom McIntyre made a mistake, likely going to get dropped. And so Nestor Guinness-Walker will come in at left back. I think their midfield will look something like Tyrese Forner, Jeff Hendrick, and Mamadou Loum. And then they'll have a front three of Yakou Mete, Tom Ince, and Andy Carroll. Now, I don't want to shout anybody out for a goal, but I do always fear Andy Carroll just for his size. And I think he can bully a man.
Words. He can bully a man.
Bully a man.
Okay, wasn't expecting that. Also, I just want to say we've got through 10 minutes of this preview, and you haven't mentioned it. No one has in the comments. I've had a haircut, and I'm a little bit offended because I think this is a nice trim. My barber looks after me.
Well, I'm sure he does a lovely job, Hal. But, I thought we were here to talk about football. I was saving it. I thought offline you'd like me to wax lyrical about what a good job he's done.
I saw what you were doing offline, Sunshine. All right, we'll have less of that. All right, this isn't that kind of program. Now, the opposition view created by Roy's View. Go to roysviewfrom.com. This is brought to you by nordvpn.com. Buy a 2-year NordVPN service using nordvpn.com/TSUW and get a hefty discount and threat protection for free. So Roy goes and collates what Reading fans are saying, and this is good. We've got a real mix here. I fear for us in this game, we will be completely overrun in midfield. Ollie, we didn't see that at Ewood Park. If anything, it was the Blades getting overrun in midfield. What do you make of that comment?
Yeah, I think they are obviously they're interested in their own team until they'll see themselves. They'll have seen what happened to them against Borough at the weekend, and they probably feel as though there's a little bit of weakness in there. I know the sort of Reading fans who I've heard from have said they're very worried about that battle in the middle, Jeff Hendrick against Oliver Norwood, for example. But it's just not how I see the game going. Our midfield recently hasn't really been able to dominate. They're not getting on top of teams and really imposing themselves. So I wouldn't expect us to overrun them in midfield. I think maybe if Norwood can get some space, we could play through a little bit. But certainly, yeah, I think that'll be an interesting battle that maybe they're feeling pessimistic, but maybe we are as well.
Maybe we are as well. There's some negative comments I'm going to get to, but yeah, maybe the midfield that played against Tottenham. It worked. Just saying, I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that we can get something here, a positive Royals fan, or you can call them the Biscuit Men if you're old. With an imminent deduction of 6 points, we will drop to 21st in the Championship with just 6 points between us and Blackpool in the relegation zone. I spoke on Twitter about this 6-point deduction sort of looming, and it's something to consider. That's also why I mentioned at the start, this is the transfer embargo derby. Another comment here, don't want to tempt fate, but Sheffield United haven't won away in the league this year yet. And for whatever reason, our home form is still holding up. Their home form is decent, Ollie, and we have won away in 2023, but that, of course, was at Millwall, wasn't it, in the FA Cup, so nothing in the league.
Yeah, indeed, yeah, and it's a really interesting comment, that, because it's hard to really reflect on what that means this game's going to look like. They are unbeaten in 7 at home, and we haven't looked good away from home. So it'll be really interesting. I expect them to be a completely different team to the one that Borough absolutely dismantled at the weekend, because they are a bit like that. They are Jekyll and Hyde, and they are good at home. They are bad away, and they've been that way for a long time. Obviously, we dismantled them at Bramall Lane, but
yeah, we did.
It's hard to see what they're going to do.
Oh, those halcyon days of Blackburn, Reading, the performances we put on at Bramall Lane at the start of the season, where teams were top of the table, coming to United and leaving with the tails between their legs. I remember when I was a child, and I still have the same brain, I remember saying to my dad, I don't understand why teams play so much better at home and then play completely differently with the same 11 away. Could you not get a psychologist or a hypnotist to convince them they're at home? Actually, I don't know if anyone's done it. But
that would be incredible. Get Yuri Geller in and let's see what he can do.
Geller, the famous spoon bender, see what he can do there. Now, the referee for Reading versus Sheffield United is Dean Whitestone. Insert sigh here. Okay, Nick's better at it. He's from North.
He is better at it.
He's on it. That's why the preview is a minute shorter. He's from Northamptonshire. He's reffed 27 games this season. He's given 82 yellows, 2 reds, and 4 penalties. I've done some sort of exaggerated explanations there, but really that's fairly par for the course. He was the man in the middle for our 2-0 win at West Brom in October of last year, as well as our 2-1 away victory at Wigan last December. But he was also the referee, and I thought he refereed the occasion, not the game, in our 3-3 draw at Wrexham in the FA Cup. Ollie, did you think he got swept up in the glitz and the glam?
Obviously it's an interesting one because obviously we look back on that game and it was poorly refed, we all thought at the time, but you've got to also bear in mind that the really controversial decision wasn't made by him. It was made by the fourth official, obviously interfering himself in the game, and potentially, he could be stronger, he could try and stand up to that, but you've got to bear that in mind. I think generally speaking, though, you are right in your analysis. He got all caught up, fancied his place on Disney Plus, and refed for that occasion.
You've been very fair there. It's your only flaw, Ollie. You're too fair. You're also a regular and frequent visitor to Indigo Resurrection Bar. Just tell us how much you enjoy going to Indigo Resurrection Bar, who very kindly decided to sponsor this, and they are dedicated pre-match drinking establishment of the Sheffield United way.
Indeed, yeah, and it's a really nice bar. It's a really nice place to be. I think, obviously, pre-game, you get a really nice vibe from all the other fans going in there. And obviously, with your discount, with your season ticket, it's always worth going in there to try and get a little bit cheaper beer. If you do go in other nights, they have football on, generally speaking. There's a bit of a pool table in there as well. So it's certainly one that I like to frequent when I get the chance.
Now, before we get to player connections, what do you think the score's going to be?
I've and ahed on this all day, and you will have noticed, Hal, that in our sort of preview chat, I've changed my prediction 2 or 3 times as the day's gone on. If I'm being brutally honest with myself, I think this one is going to be a 1-1 draw. Okay. I think that their good home form against our poor away form will probably mean it's a poor game to watch and probably ends up being a draw that neither team really want.
Let's get back on track. This is a 2-0 Blades win. It's comfortable. It's comprehensive. It's the most complete away performance since Millwall in the FA Cup. The doom and gloom merchants sit back because this is where the season-defining result happens. Believe.
I agree. I think this is the biggest game of the season. I mean, I say this every week because every game
this is the biggest game.
Yeah, it just feels as though with this being the game in hand, things go from being relatively comfortable to completely nowhere, because if we win this game and it's 7 points, suddenly again you're looking positive. You go into Luton at the weekend and you think, yes, let's kick on, let's really make this last this time. If you lose and it's 4 points, they're very much breathing down your necks, and that's a real worry that it's hard to recover from mentally to try and make that happen. So it's hard to underestimate how big this one is going to be. But again, we will say this time and time and time again between now and the end of the season, because when you're in this position, every time the next game is the biggest one you've got left.
Yeah, you're right. Got a nice little run at the end of the season, but let's see where we are when we get to that point. So, by the way, you also got an opposition prediction, didn't you?
I did indeed, yes. Reading fan who fortunately was kind enough to help me out looking at some of that Reading team news. He's at Shakefon, that's SHAKEFON on Twitter. Do go and give him a follow if you are a Reading fan or if you just like general football content, because he's great. He has gone for a 2-0 United win as well. He agrees with yourself, Hal. He has come into this obviously off the back of the weekend. He says, yes, they're a very different team at home. Yes, they're better at home, but they haven't played against a team at the top of the division like United, and he feels as though that will really make a difference.
The man from Reading, he says yes. Let's get player connections. Ollie, I'm just going to do them all. Unless you've got any.
Fine. Do it.
Stephen Quinn, James Harper, who I met in the Copthorne Hotel, and he never stopped talking. Carla Saba, who is, I'm proud to say, a friend as well. And one that you'll probably go, who? Tell me if you've heard of Sal Bibbo.
Who?
Or as I call him, Hal Bibbo. Played for the Blades, had great hair, Salvatore, and was like a third choice keeper around the same sort of time as Billy Mercer. Look at that face.
No,
And
I
then,
don't. No, I've got no idea who he is.
well,
I'll
he
be honest
played
with
in
you,
goal
unfortunately.
for Reading against us. I think it was a cup game at Bramall Lane, and he had a worldie, and eventually Lee Sanford beat him at the Cop End. I think it was a Cop End, and we won 1-0. My dad and I, we still talk about it as one of our favourite night games. It was fantastic. It's Sal Bibbo, good keeper, didn't really get a chance to show what he could do. Very much the Clive Mendonca of the goalkeeping world. Look at that face, not a clue. Any other players, Lenny other layers, that's what I was going to say. Pop them in the comments below and we will go through them. Ollie, you look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, who went the other way in the James Harper deal? It was an exchange, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh, and Glenn Little, he played for us as well.
He did.
And then I'm trying to remember who it was with the James Harper deal. That has completely gone from my memory warehouse.
I can't remember at all.
No, it'll come back. But crucially, not when we're doing this video. Enjoy the game, Blades. I will. Let's hope that Ollie, as per usual, with his awful prediction, is wrong. And we'll see you next time.